So the topic of the session here tonight it's kind of the same topic as last time, and it's a topic that I think is so interesting and so important. And it is this thing, like, we are doing this work with essence, and we in meditation, in our exercises, we get to connect with essence. We get these experiences of essence. We might also understand some of the things that takes our awareness away from essence, distracts us from essence, and we try to sort of prolong the time we spend in essence so that it has a possibility of affecting our psyche, our mind, our emotions, and our physical body, transforming us slowly, cooking us as we spend time in essence. Yet, I think everybody knows this, that one thing is to experience essence in meditation and the privacy of your meditation, or in while you are doing workshops and groups, but it's a completely different ball game when you engage with your everyday life and you know, the human stuff and people and all this kind of thing. Then all of a sudden, you know, it seems like a lot of the insights, a lot of the connection that we have when we meditate or when we're on retreats might be a little bit more difficult to access, or sometimes it's just completely out the window. And I find it such an interesting topic, this: how can we move into everyday action without losing sight of essence, without forgetting who we are, without forgetting our nature. So yes, so this is the topic: how do we move into action in a way that that is nice, where we do not lose sight of essence. And first I'll see, let me see here. There. Yeah. So last time, I'm playing a little bit with trying to make things into models and acronyms and something like this. But those of you who were here last time might remember that I spoke about sort of 4 nice practices. And last time we talked a lot about the embodiment of the like grounding our concepts in the experience of essence, what I have called the essential embodiment of concepts. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the contemplating, the first one, contemplating how you would act if it's true that all we ever search for is ever present to us. And that is, of course, referring to this that essence is ever present. Essence doesn't come and go, but we come and go. We get distracted. Sometimes we think that we have lost essence, but it's not because we've lost it. It's just because we have a limited capacity for how much we can be aware of, and our awareness is fully taken by other stuff. So that's the one I'd like to dive into a little bit this time. So this is one way of thinking about, this is a picture of each one of you, of everyone. And you can say, like I also mentioned last time, there are, within us, we have these like coherent little systems that support different kinds of action. So each of the circles inside the big circle is one of these little coherent systems. It's like a certain set of perceptual filters, beliefs, worldviews, and something like this that supports us in taking a particular kind of action. And last time I mentioned an example, which is the example there's been done a lot of research on, inattentional blindness. So for those of you who haven't tried the exercise, I'm now going to ruin it for you, but I think a lot of you probably have. Last time I mentioned this, that there's been this video where there's a team of 2 teams playing basketball and passing a ball between them. And one team is dressed in black and one team is dressed in white. And then you are asked to look at the video and carry out a specific action, namely counting how many times the white team passes the ball between them. And with all the movement on the screen, it's a task that actually takes quite a lot of attention. And so after you watch the video, you have been diligently counting how many times the white team has passed the ball. So that's the action that you have tuned into. And then you have some number, 22, 25, I don't remember how many it is, and you're very proud of yourself because you believe that you have counted correctly. But then after the video, you are asked, so how many times did they pass? You say 25, you say this is correct, but did you notice the gorilla? And usually if people haven't done this before, they say, what are you talking about? The gorilla. And then when you watch the movie again, you see that a gorilla in black walks in among the players, front and center, like the middle of the screen, in front of all the players, and starts waving for quite a while, and then walks out again. But because you were focused on counting how many times the white players passed the ball, you completely didn't notice it. Like the vast majority of people don't notice it. And I think this is a very good illustration of what happens to us when we take a task like, for example, solving a conflict with somebody, or doing the dishes, or driving a car, or carrying out whatever kind of job we have. So when we are engaged in these tasks, we just notice the things that are relevant to carrying out the task. And for the vast majority of actions that you would go through in a normal life, paying attention to essence doesn't seem to be relevant to the task. You can boil an egg without paying attention to essence. You can have you can have interviews where you are hiring people, or without paying attention to essence. You can do most of the things that you do in your everyday life without paying attention to essence. However, when we do that, it has the unfortunate consequence that because we don't pay attention to essence, it isn't part of our life. And at some point, we start feeling that it's gone, or we have lost it. And then we get this idea that there is something, we don't know what it is, but we have lost it and we should regain it. And of course, if we try to regain it by using one of the small circles, we just get our attention trapped in another small circle, in another small circle, and in another small circle, and none of them really helps us noticing essence. However, if we can manage to sort of disengage from all of these small action-specific ways of perceiving the world, then suddenly we notice that there is something much bigger, something the whole thing is held within, and this is where we often discover essence. So let me see here. Yes. So I want to focus a little bit on, if we sort of like take one of these little circles and say, why is it that the example with the inattentional blindness gives us a clue to it, but can we say something more about why is it that these little coherent systems of perception, beliefs, and worldviews and so on locks our attention in a way so that it's difficult to remember the whole. And there I really like this model developed by Albert Bandura that some of you probably know, a very famous psychologist who did the whole experiment with the Bobo doll and showed that that children learned through imitation, not just through being reinforcement, patterns of reinforcement, as the behaviorist believed. So he has, but one of his other famous concepts, he named it the terrible name reciprocal determinism. But it's very nice because it shows something about how these coherent systems of cognition, emotion, action, and so on can be self-reinforcing and self-concealing, and that this is why they can trap our awareness. So just to briefly mention what he says that there are, he operates with 3 spheres which are mutually determining each other. So he has one sphere which is personal factors, it's your values, beliefs, goals, and so on. He also includes emotions and biology in that one. Sometimes we like to sort of separate out the thoughts, the beliefs from the emotions, but he puts them in the same category. Then there's another group, which is your behaviors, so what you actually do, and another one which is environmental factors. So it's sort of like, what kind of environments do you seek out? And now to see, you can start from any of these. So let's give an example. For example, if you have the belief that, let's say you have the belief that dancing, couple dancing is fantastic. This happens to be a belief that I have. So it's easy for me to use it as an example. If you have the belief that couple dance is fantastic, you are probably going to take classes and go out dancing. And that means that you will start seeking out environments that are full of people that agree with you. So there's a personal factor, a belief, that influences what kind of environments you frequent. Now, the other way, if you, by going to that environment where that's full of people who believe that dancing is fantastic, that will reinforce your belief, because now everybody agrees on it, so it must be true. And you can also say that the belief changes your behavior, because now all of a sudden you will spend a significant amount of your evenings dancing. Well, at the moment, maybe not, but otherwise you will spend a significant amount of your evenings going dancing. So that's a behavior. And when you do that, you practice, you get better, and then dancing becomes more fun to you. So that reinforces the belief. And so the belief and the emotions, the behavior and the environment starts forming this little world, you can say, where everything starts reinforcing each other. And this is how our attention gets trapped, because it can be very difficult to when everything supports each other and makes sense and is coherent, it can be very difficult to sort of zoom out and see a bigger perspective and see what is it that you are not seeing, as long as your attention is trapped in this little system. To give you another example, you can say something like, I like to use these, you might have the belief that in order to be liked by others, you should be kind, and you should never be angry with anybody. So this is a belief some people have. Now, if you have this belief, you might start acting in a certain way. So you will maybe try the best to your best of your ability to be kind and never aggressive. Now, then people start learning that this is how you are. So there's an impact on the environmental factors, because you will probably attract people who like you because you are kind to them and never aggressive. And now, if you start, like if at some point you get angry about something and you express it, then you'll get pushback from the environment, because they were like, oh, but we didn't think you were like this, and we don't like this. And that will in turn reinforce your belief. And you say, no, see, that's what I said all along. People don't like when people raise their voice or something like this. So again, you can see how, in this case, there's a little coherent system where your beliefs, your actions, and the environment that you frequent all support each other. And in this environment, stepping back and seeing the benefits of your aggressive impulse can be extremely difficult, because nothing in the environment suggests that there could be any benefits of aggression. And of course, you know, this is the same thing with a lot of other behaviors and emotions and so on. So this is just to give you a sense of how these little personality parts, and especially when they play together with the environment, or then they can become self-reinforcing, they can become self-fulfilling, and they can become self-concealing. It's like you don't even see that there is this system at play in the background. Good. So here's, if you go back here, you could sort of sit down, and then you can say, okay, so what are my personality parts? What are the coherent systems that operate in me? And then you can say, a very nice way of doing this is to say, at the core of them, each of them is, there's an action, an agenda, because these are little coherent systems in support of a particular kind of action. So I really like to say, one circle, one agenda. That's a very nice way of looking at this and mapping out what kind of personality parts do you have. And these personality parts will relate to each other also. So of course you can say a lot about each of them, but I think it's very useful to say what's their agenda, what do they hope to achieve, what do they fear, and something about the emotionality or emotional tone of them and their relationship to other inner parts. I think that's a very nice way of, I think this one is a little bit in the way there, emotions and relationship. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to, as I said, give you a link to this, and then you can sort of sit and play with it. And this was just off the top of my head. It's not, it's not a particular model or something like this. These are just the kind of personality parts that are very common, that are very, many people can relate to. So you might have a personality part that's very set on achieving stuff. So it wants to do things that impress other people. So it will sort of detect what's impressive here, and it will try to do it. And it is not just to impress others. Usually these parts are, or the parts that are really interesting to look at, are the parts that have a vague sense of what you have lost when you forgot the wholeness, and they're trying to reach, ultimately that's what they're trying to reach for. So maybe the part of you that's really set on achieving things, that pushes you to have a rigid practice schedule or something like this, is very set on, it tries to reach for a quality of essence that is like being a star or being radiant or something, like really shining. And of course it fears to be empty or being a nobody. And it would see others, like maybe you have a part of you that's really into relaxing, and this part of you would be very vexed with that relaxing part of you, because it will see it as an obstacle, something that sabotages its particular agenda. It has the idea, I need to do something impressive so that I can recuperate this aspect of essence that I'm particularly fond of. With the relaxing part, maybe it has the agenda, it says let's do nothing in particular except what we find pleasurable in the moment. And it's because it's after a different kind of, a different aspect of essence. It's after something that feels like smoothness, ease, tranquility, and so on. It would be trying to get away from any agitation, stress, exhaustion, because it thinks that's the way to the smoothness and the ease. And it would be very tired of the part of you that is sort of the achiever. So this is an example of two parts that are after different aspects of essence, and therefore they have conflicting agendas, and they see each other as obstacles. Sometimes you will, when you do the mapping out, you will find that you have different parts of you that are ultimately after the same thing, but they have very different methods of getting there. So yeah, so this is just to say that this is how the and it's very fun to sort of sit down and map out your inner world like this. Now, there's one thing that is interesting to see when you look at this, and that is to say, the task of waking up, the task of remembering essence and remembering the wholeness, is the task of unhooking your attention from the trap of any of these parts. Sometimes when we look at inner parts, we get, there's another trap, which is we try to figure out who's right. Is it the achiever or the relaxer? Whose side should I be on? And waking up is the task of not being on anybody's side, or alternatively being on everybody's side simultaneously, but unhooking your awareness from the push and the pull of any inner part. And there's a very interesting and efficient way of doing so. Now, the way of doing it is that you can notice one thing that all of these parts have in common is that they believe they have to do something in order to get the particular aspect of essence that they are trying to get. The achiever thinks you have to impress others to feel the radiance. The relaxer thinks you have to relax and chill and only do pleasurable things in order to get to the sense of smoothness, ease, and tranquility. The authentic part thinks that you have to be yourself no matter what, no compromise, in order to get to the radiance, which might be the same kind of radiance the achiever is trying to get to, and so on. So the underlying assumption that all of these inner parts share is to get to the essence, you have to do something, to produce it, to find it, something like this. And therefore, contemplating that, or remembering that essence is always present, can be a very powerful way of rendering all of the activity of all of your parts superfluous. So this leads me to the question that I'll invite you to explore, and I'll say a little bit more about it. And that is, if it is true that essence is ever present, which is kind of what we, one of the very basic assumptions we work from in this, operate from in this work, then it must be true that grounding, aliveness, peace, kindness, joy, love, connection, freedom, and so on, all the words that we use to describe different essences, all of these things are right here, right now. You may be too busy to notice, but they are right here, right now. And the moment you stop your activity, you have the possibility to become aware of it and feel the impact of it, and savor it and enjoy it. And now, if that is true, then there is so much of our activity, all our activity that is about achieving these things, suddenly becomes superfluous. And that means that you have a lot of time on your hands all of a sudden. So a very interesting question I find is to say, if grounding, aliveness, peace, and so on is just there, whenever you want it, you just reach out and touch it, and you feel the fullness of it and can enjoy it as much as you want, then what would you do in life? So this is a way, this contemplation is a way of shifting out of, simultaneously shifting out of all the agendas of all the inner parts. What would you do if you didn't have to do anything to feel completely solid and grounded, to feel the vibrancy and aliveness, to feel the exquisite restfulness and peace, to feel the delicious meltedness of kindness, the lightness of joy, the smoothness of love and connection, and the spaciousness and openness of freedom. If this was just every single time that you wanted to feel any of this, you just had to remember it. Then how would you go? What would you do with all the time that was suddenly freed up?